Disclaimer: it's inspired by reality, shaped by imagination.
What started as a casual morning on The View quickly turned into one of the most talked-about on-air clashes of the year. Actor Nicolas Cage, known for his intense roles and unpredictable honesty, joined the panel to discuss a surprisingly simple topic: should technology be limited at family gatherings? But within minutes, the debate spiraled far beyond polite disagreement. Behar, ever the sharp-tongued skeptic, argued that technology keeps families connected, even across distance. Nicolas fired back, saying that phones have replaced eye contact, laughter, and genuine conversation. The conversation grew personal when Nicolas revealed how his own family dinners had turned into a chorus of scrolling thumbs, and Joy countered that the world had changed and people just needed to adapt. What followed wasn't just a clash of opinions. It was a collision of values: nostalgia versus modern convenience, connection versus distraction. And by the end of it, when Nicolas Cage stood up and walked off the set mid-segment, the audience wasn't just shocked. They were left wondering, had technology really improved how families connect, or had it quietly taken something priceless away? The studio lights shimmered across The View's glass table as the cameras rolled, capturing the easy chatter between the hosts. The day's topic sounded simple on paper: should technology be limited at family gatherings? But as Joy Behar leaned back in her chair with that familiar, mischievous grin, and Nicolas Cage adjusted his black jacket, anyone watching could sense something brewing beneath the surface. "All right, everyone," Joy began, turning to the audience. "Let's talk turkey. Every time I go to a family dinner, my grandkids have their phones out. And you know what? I don't care. They're showing me memes, TikToks. It's fun. Why would anyone want to take that away?" The audience chuckled. Nicholas smiled faintly, but didn't join in. "Joy, I love a good laugh too," he said, his tone steady but pointed. "But there's a difference between sharing a moment and missing one. When my family gets together, it used to mean conversation, stories, even a little chaos. Now it's quiet. Everyone's heads down, faces glowing from their screens." Joy laughed lightly, waving her hand dismissively. "Come on, Nick, that's melodramatic. People have been complaining about change since the radio was invented." Whoopi Goldberg, sitting beside her, raised an eyebrow. "Well, Joy, he's got a point. You ever been to a dinner where everyone's on their phones? You start to wonder if you died and nobody told you." The audience erupted in laughter, but Nicholas didn't smile. "I'm not saying technology's evil," he continued, leaning forward, hands clasped, "but we've lost the ritual of being present. My son used to ask questions about life, movies, history. Now he's just scrolling. It's like a piece of him's been outsourced to a screen." Joy turned toward him, voice sharper now. "But that's not technology's fault, that's parenting. If you can't control your kid's screen time, that's on you." The audience gasped, half amused, half stunned. Nicholas blinked slowly, like he was deciding whether to take the bait. "Joy, you think control is the issue? You can't control a world that's designed to keep us addicted. These apps are engineered to hook people. Even adults can't look away. We've traded connection for dopamine hits." Sonny Hostin jumped in, ever the peacemaker. "I think what Nicholas is saying is that maybe families need boundaries, like phones in a basket during dinner or something. Doesn't mean you hate tech, it just means you value time together." "Exactly," Nicholas said. "When I was growing up, family dinner was sacred. You didn't miss it, you didn't rush it. It was where you learned who your people were. Now we're too busy recording the moment to live it." Joy smirked. "Well, not everyone's got time to wax nostalgic about candlelit dinners, Nick. Some of us live in the real world. Families are scattered. People work 2 jobs. FaceTime might be the only connection they have." "That's fair," Nicholas replied, his voice calm but heavy. "But if the only way we connect is through screens, then maybe we're mistaking convenience for closeness." The studio went quiet for a beat. Joy folded her arms, her tone more defensive now. "So what, we just ban phones? Pretend we're in 1950 again?" Nicholas smiled faintly, though his eyes were serious. Maybe not ban them, but maybe remember what it's like to talk, to listen, to laugh without needing to post it. When was the last time people at a dinner table looked at each other instead of their phones? Joy gave a quick, tight laugh. Probably before people got bored listening to each other. Whoopi leaned forward, amused but cautious. Okay, she said, raising her hand like a referee. Let's keep it civil, people. We're not throwing phones at each other yet. The crowd laughed, breaking the tension for a moment. But Nicholas wasn't done. Joy, with all due respect, it's not about boredom. It's about losing something that used to mean everything. My mother used to say the best stories come over a dinner table. Now, the only stories people tell are captions. Joy's jaw tightened. Maybe that's just evolution, Nick. Maybe people are finding new ways to connect. Why should your version of connection be the right one? Because the old one worked, he said simply. People used to know how to talk, how to listen. You didn't need filters or followers to feel seen. You just needed family. The audience applauded softly. Joy exhaled and shook her head, forcing a smile. You sound like you want to take away everyone's phones and force them into a group hug. Good luck with that. Nicholas grinned back. Maybe that's not such a bad idea. The studio laughed again, easing the tension, but the exchange had shifted something in the room. You could see the spark in Joy's eyes, the challenge. Nicolas Cage wasn't playing the Hollywood guest who nods along. He was poking at something deeper, a truth Joy wasn't ready to let sit unchallenged. As the camera panned across the panel during the transition to commercial, the air was thick with a strange mix of amusement and unease. The real debate was only just beginning.
The second segment opened with a burst of applause, but the tension from before hadn't really faded. The camera zoomed in on Joy Behar, who smiled tightly before turning toward Nicolas Cage, her voice dripping with her usual humor, but a touch of edge underneath. So, Nick, you think family dinners should be tech-free zones? That's cute. But how do you make that happen in the real world? You gonna walk around snatching people's phones like the phone police? The audience chuckled. Nicholas gave a faint smirk, but his reply was measured. No, Joy, I'm not talking about policing anyone. I'm talking about reminding people what they're losing. Every time we choose a screen over someone sitting right in front of us, we're voting for loneliness. The words landed heavier than anyone expected. Whoopi raised her eyebrows. Sunny Hostin nodded slightly. Ana Navarro folded her arms, studying Nicholas with curiosity. Joy rolled her eyes, though there was an uneasiness in her laugh. Loneliness, please. I FaceTime my friends every day. I've got more people checking in on me now than I ever did before smartphones existed. Do they check in, Joy? Nicholas asked quietly. Or do they just text you? The audience murmured. Joy blinked, caught off guard. Nicholas leaned in, his tone firmer now. You can't hug a text. You can't look someone in the eyes through a screen and really feel them. And when it comes to family, especially older generations, screens have become a shield. People hide behind them instead of showing up. Joy straightened her back, clearly not enjoying the direction. Okay, but people are busy, Nicholas. They can't just pop in every Sunday like it's 1962. Life's different. You're romanticizing a world that doesn't exist anymore. Whoopi jumped in before Nicholas could respond. I think what he's saying, Joy, is that maybe it should still exist. I mean, when I was growing up, Sunday dinners were church, therapy, and comedy hour rolled into one. Now everyone's too busy liking each other online to talk face-to-face. The audience clapped, and Joy shot her a look. You sound like him now, Whoopi. You two planning to start a flip phone fan club? Anna laughed. Joy, don't tempt him. Nicholas probably has a flip phone already. Nicholas grinned. Actually, I do. I like things simple. When I'm with my family, I want to be with them, not half there, half scrolling through notifications. Sunny Hostin spoke up, her tone balanced. But Nicholas, you can't deny that technology helps families stay connected, especially those who live far apart. My parents FaceTime with my kids all the time. They love it. I get that, Sunny, Nicholas said, nodding. I'm not against technology. I'm against dependence. There's a difference. We use tech as a tool. It shouldn't be a substitute for being present. You ever see a kid try to talk to their grandparent while their grandparent's looking at their phone? It's heartbreaking. The audience hummed in agreement. Joy, however, wasn't done. You sound like my old neighbor, Nick. Every new thing scared her. TV was ruining us, then rock music, then video games, now it's phones. Maybe the problem isn't tech, it's people who don't want to evolve. Evolve into what? Nicholas asked, his tone rising just slightly. People who can't sit in silence for 5 seconds? People who'd rather record a memory than experience it? Joy's lips tightened. You're acting like using a phone at dinner means the family's falling apart. It's just life moving forward. Maybe, Nicholas said, but not every kind of forward is progress. The audience applauded again, louder this time. Joy tried to smile through it, but her body language betrayed her, arms crossed, foot tapping, glancing toward the teleprompter. Ana Navarro leaned in with a grin. You know, Joy, I think what Nicholas is trying to say is that there's value in putting the phone down once in a while. It's not anti-tech, it's pro-connection. Exactly, Nicholas replied. We've gotten so used to multitasking our lives that we've forgotten what it feels like to give someone our full attention. Family gatherings used to mean stories, arguments, laughter, all in the same room. Now it's just Wi-Fi. The audience clapped again. Joy laughed, but it came out tight and forced. Oh, please, Nick. Half those stories were people gossiping or fighting about politics. Maybe phones make dinners better. You can tune out Uncle Larry's conspiracy theories. Even Whoopi laughed at that one, but Nicholas didn't. You can joke about it, Joy, but people are lonely. Kids don't talk to their parents. Couples sit next to each other without saying a word. We've built walls out of glass screens and called it progress. Joy smirked. So what's your solution, Mr. Cage? We all turn off our phones and sing Kumbaya? He met her gaze, steady and unflinching. Maybe. Or maybe we start by remembering that love isn't measured in likes. The audience exploded in applause, cheers, whistles, even a few standing claps from the back row. Joy's eyes darted to the crowd, then back at him, visibly irritated that the audience was siding with him. Whoopi leaned forward, her tone half joking but watchful. Okay, we've got fire at the table today. Let's keep it from burning the whole set down. Joy forced a grin. I'm fine, just not used to being lectured by an action star about family values. Nicholas leaned back, smiling faintly. Maybe you should be. The audience gasped. Joy blinked, stunned, her mouth opening slightly before closing again. For a split second, you could have heard a pin drop. Then the camera cut to commercial. Joy's jaw tight, Nicholas staring straight ahead, and Whoopi quietly shaking her head like she knew this was about to get a lot more intense after the break. The clash had started as a debate about technology, but underneath it, something deeper was cracking open. Two very different ideas of what family meant in a changing world. And when the cameras came back, that difference was about to explode. The cameras came back from commercial to a noticeably different energy in the room. Joy Behar sat stiffly, her usual grin replaced by something sharper. Nicolas Cage looked calm, but his fingers tapped lightly on the table, a quiet rhythm that gave away the tension under the surface. Whoopi tried to ease the moment. All right, folks, she said with a light chuckle, we're back, and I think we all need a sip of water before this table turns into a boxing ring. The audience laughed, but the air still felt tight. Joy leaned forward, clearly not ready to let Nicholas have the last word. So, Nicholas, she began, her voice deceptively casual, you're saying families are falling apart because of phones. But let me ask you, what about the families that can't be together? What about kids living in different states, grandparents across the country? Without technology, they'd have nothing. Nicholas nodded slowly. You're right, distance is real. But loneliness doesn't always come from being far away. Sometimes it comes from sitting right next to someone who's too distracted to notice you're there. A low murmur rippled through the audience. Whoopi raised her eyebrows. That sounds poetic, Nick, but it's not realistic. People have jobs, stress, responsibilities. You can't guilt them for checking their phones at dinner. "I'm not guilting anyone," Nicholas said, his tone soft but direct. "I'm asking them to think about what they're trading away. My father used to sit at the head of the table and tell us stories about his childhood. Now, when I call my own son for dinner, he doesn't even look up. He just says, 1 second, Dad, and keeps scrolling. That 1 second turns into 20 minutes. The food gets cold, the silence gets heavier." The studio fell completely silent. You could see a few audience members nodding, their expressions shifting from amusement to reflection. Joy raised her eyebrows. "That sounds poetic, Nick, but it's not realistic. People have jobs, stress, responsibilities. You can't guilt them for checking their phones at dinner." "I'm not guilting anyone," Nicholas said, his tone soft but direct. "I'm asking them to think about what they're trading away. My father used to sit at the head of the table and tell us stories about his childhood. Now, when I call my own son for dinner, he doesn't even look up. He just says, 1 second, Dad, and keeps scrolling. That 1 second turns into 20 minutes. The food gets cold, the silence gets heavier." The studio fell completely silent. You could see a few audience members nodding, their expressions shifting from amusement to reflection. Joy hesitated, then softened her tone slightly. "I get that, Nick, really. But that's not technology's fault. That's just families growing apart. Times change. Times change, but human needs don't. We all still need to be seen, to be heard, to feel loved. Technology promises connection, but half the time it gives us isolation with better lighting." The audience applauded again, this time slower, more thoughtful. Joy looked down for a moment, then back at him. "You're making it sound like we've lost all hope," she said, "but I think tech has saved families. You know how many people got through the pandemic because of video calls, because they could see their grandkids' faces?" "Absolutely," Nicholas said. "Technology can bridge the gap, but it's not supposed to replace the bridge. My point is, we've let it do that. We've forgotten how to be uncomfortable, how to be still, how to talk without checking our phones every 5 minutes. Whoopi spoke up, her tone softer now. "I think Nick's got a point, Joy. I was talking to my goddaughter the other day, and halfway through she started texting while I was still speaking. I just stopped, didn't even finish the sentence. That's not connection, it's coexistence." Joy sighed. "I get it, but maybe that's just the world now. Maybe people communicate differently. Maybe our idea of togetherness has evolved." "Then I feel sorry for that evolution," Nicholas said quietly, "because it's producing the loneliest generation in history." The audience gasped softly. His voice cracked just slightly, enough for everyone to lean in. He paused, then continued, slower now. "You know, I visited a retirement home last year while filming in Nevada. Dozens of seniors sitting in a room, each one staring at a tablet. They were connected online, sure, but no one was talking. No one was laughing. They had 1,000 friends on Facebook and no one holding their hand. That broke me." Even Joy didn't interrupt. He went on, his voice heavy. "One woman told me she hadn't had a hug in over 3 years, but she got birthday messages from strangers. She said it felt like being surrounded by noise, but still being alone." The audience was dead silent now. Joy shifted slightly, eyes lowering for a moment, then back at him. That's hard to hear," she said. Her voice had lost its edge. "It is," Nicholas said, "because it's real. We've mistaken connection for contact. They're not the same thing." For the first time that morning, Joy looked like she was really listening. "So what do you want people to do, Nick?" she asked quietly. "You can't turn back time." "No, but we can slow it down. We can look up, put the phone down for an hour. Ask your dad how his day was. Tell your mom she looks beautiful. We don't need to turn back time. We just need to start paying attention again." There was a long pause. Then, almost on cue, the audience broke into applause. It wasn't wild or rowdy, it was heartfelt. Some people were even standing. Joy looked toward the crowd, then back at Nicholas. She tried to smile, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. "You really believe that'll change things?" He smiled faintly. "I have to. Otherwise, what are we even fighting for?" The applause grew louder, echoing through the studio. But behind Joy's thin smile, something else flickered, a mix of irritation and embarrassment. For a moment, she wasn't the one in control of the table. Nicholas had shifted the energy completely. The discussion wasn't over, but it was no longer just a debate about technology. It had become a conversation about what it really means to be present and about the fear that maybe, just maybe, we've forgotten how.
By the time the segment reached its final 10 minutes, the air inside the view felt dense enough to touch. The studio lights were hot, the cameras too close, and every face on that panel looked frozen somewhere between amusement and discomfort. Joy Behar leaned forward with a smirk that had lost all humor. "You know what, Nicholas? Maybe people don't need another lecture from a man who spent half his career yelling at ghosts and national treasures. Maybe just let families enjoy their phones." The audience laughed, but it was nervous laughter. It didn't come from amusement. It came from tension. Nicolas Cage sat there staring at Joy with that trademark intensity that once made villains crumble on screen. Then, very calmly, he said, "You ever stop to think maybe that's the problem, Joy? Everyone's laughing when they should be listening." A hush fell. He continued, his voice low and steady. "I'm not talking about banning technology. I'm talking about moments that matter. I'm talking about a kid trying to show his dad a magic trick, but the dad scrolling through fantasy football stats. I'm talking about a grandmother at Thanksgiving telling her story for the 5th time because no one bothered to listen the first 4. Joy shifted in her seat. "That's life today. It's modern, it's digital. You can't just turn back time." Nicholas looked right at her. "You can't turn it back, but you can decide not to waste it." That line hung in the air. Even Whoopi Goldberg, usually quick with a quip to break the tension, stayed silent. Joy tried to recover. "So what, you want the government to fine people for texting their aunt? You want to police the dinner table?" Nicholas chuckled softly. "No, Joy. I want people to care again. I want a family dinner to feel like family, not a tech convention with cold food." The audience clapped lightly. A few even stood. Joy's smile faltered. "You sound like a man out of touch." He leaned forward, eyes sharp. "Out of touch? Maybe. But maybe that's because I've seen what being in touch with everything else does to people. You lose your real connections. You lose the soul of what family used to mean." For a moment, Joy looked like she might snap back, but something about his tone stopped her. Then she said, "Families evolve, Nicholas. You can't guilt people into being close." He nodded slowly. "No, you can't. But you can remind them what closeness feels like." A beat passed. The audience started applauding again, this time louder. Nicholas sat back, folding his arms, clearly done talking. Joy glanced toward the producers, then muttered, "You know, I think we're done lecturing our viewers for today." But Nicholas wasn't finished. He stood up, took off his mic, and said into the air, half to the crowd, half to himself, "If needing real connection makes me old-fashioned, I'll wear that label proudly." He placed the mic on the table, gave a small nod to Whoopi, and walked off the set. The audience gasped, phones raised, capturing every second. Joy looked stunned, blinking at the empty chair. Whoopi finally spoke, trying to break the silence. "Well, that was, passionate." But it was too late. The clip had already become a viral moment waiting to happen. The image of Nicolas Cage walking off the view after calling out modern families for losing their connection. Backstage, Nicholas didn't look angry,
just tired. He told a crew member, "Maybe they'll remember this next time they sit at a table together." And with that, he walked out of the studio, the echo of his words still hanging in the air, clear, unfiltered, and painfully true.
When the show went off air, the mood in the View studio was unlike anything the crew had seen in years. The laughter had vanished. The audience murmured softly, unsure if what they had witnessed was an argument, a revelation, or both. Nicolas Cage's empty chair sat there like a silent monument to the moment, one that would be replayed millions of times before the day was over. By the time Joy Behar turned back to the camera, the control room was signaling for her to wrap up, but even she seemed thrown off. Her usual confidence, her easy humor, they were gone. She forced a smile and said, "Well, folks, that was quite a discussion. We'll be right back." Then she turned away, shaking her head slightly as the commercial jingle rolled. Meanwhile, Nicolas Cage was already outside the studio, standing on the sidewalk under the early morning sun. Reporters were shouting questions. "Nicolas, why did you walk out?" But he didn't stop. He just looked straight ahead and said quietly, "Because sometimes silence says more than words ever could." Within an hour, the clip was everywhere. Twitter, TikTok, YouTube. Nicolas Cage walks off the View after clash with Joy Behar blared across headlines. But unlike most viral TV moments, the comments weren't mocking. They were reflective. People shared their own stories. One viewer wrote, "My dad used to tell me to put my phone down during dinner. I rolled my eyes back then. He passed away last year. Now I'd give anything to have that one dinner back." Another wrote, "Nicolas wasn't angry, he was right. We talk to each other less even when we're sitting in the same room." Joy Behar, who rarely backed down from controversy, addressed the walkout on her podcast that night. She said, "I still think Nicolas is living in another era, but maybe he's holding on to something we've let go too easily. Real connection." It wasn't an apology, but it was the closest she had ever come. Producers invited Nicolas to return to the show later that week. He declined politely, sending a short statement that simply read, "Family isn't about perfect moments. It's about presence. Maybe we've confused connection with contact. Maybe it's time to remember the difference." The quote went viral again. Major networks replayed his final words from the show. "If needing real connection makes me old-fashioned, I'll wear that label proudly." Something about it resonated. For days, social media was filled with photos of families putting their phones away during dinner, captioned, "Cage Challenge, one meal, no screens." Even Whoopi Goldberg chimed in on a later episode. "You know, I think Nicolas Cage gave us a wake-up call. I saw people online actually talking to their families again. Maybe walking off wasn't dramatic, it was necessary." Back in Los Angeles, Nicolas avoided interviews, spending time with his grown kids. One evening, he sat on his porch watching them laugh over a board game, phones left forgotten inside. For the first time in a long while, he felt exactly what he'd been fighting for: quiet, genuine togetherness. He smiled and said softly, "Maybe that's the real comeback." In the end, his clash with Joy Behar wasn't remembered as a meltdown. It became a message, not about fame or pride or who won the argument, but about what happens when we forget to look up, to listen, to be there. And whether people agreed with him or not, one thing was undeniable. Nicolas Cage made millions stop scrolling long enough to think. If you like this powerful moment, make sure to subscribe for more unforgettable celebrity clashes and emotional TV showdowns. Drop a comment below. Do you think technology has made families closer or further apart?